tell us what that means. You built a brand around high pressure situations. What does that mean?
When a customer is sitting with the sales consultant or they're dealing with the sales manager and they're trying to get to numbers, that's a very high pressure moment for the customer and also for the dealership.
Why did the car business evolve to be where like you've got to be kind of like on guard when you're going to a car dealership?
I think what it was is that it used to be hard sales tactics worked in the early 90s. Finance comes out as an advocate because our job is not to sell the car, it's to sell it to a bank. My job here is to mitigate risk with the customer, mitigate risk for the bank, and make sure that I'm able to get this loan bought with the most aggressive terms that you're going to be happy with.
What's like a system or a habit that you've implemented in dealerships that immediately improves performance in the sales of the finance team? All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, guys, we have the lone wizard, Gregory Geczi, an automotive finance and sales executive known for bringing clarity, structure, and disciplined thinking into high-pressure environments. If you guys ever been to a car dealership, it's high pressure. Gregory has built his reputation on simplifying complex financial decisions, leading with integrity, and helping teams perform better without relying on urgency, confusion, or shortcuts. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Travis. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Greg, can I call you Greg?
Absolutely. Keep it casual and simple.
Okay, casual and simple. So, Greg, you're hailing out of just Punta Gorda, Florida, right? That's what we're talking about.
That is correct.
So, everybody out there this week who's suffering in the snow, me and Greg are doing just fine down here in sunny Florida.
Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. We will be thinking about you, and we will be enjoying the sun without you.
Precisely.
So, tell us, where are you at right now? You're in the car business, obviously. What store are you at right now?
So I'm currently not at a store. I just moved back to the state of Florida a slim 60 days ago. Not even.
Oh, okay.
So was at the Platinum Automotive Group for a little while. I'm here in the sunny state of Florida. Obviously, we parted ways rather quickly. Just to keep up and more so focusing on my brand, the Lone Wizard, bringing that experience of automotive finance into dealerships. That has been more so the core focus. The amount of knowledge that is out there that is currently not in dealerships is somewhat astonishing, so to speak.
I could totally agree with that. There's mostly amateur hour out there. That's what I call it.
It's exactly what it is. It is definitely amateur hour. You find a couple diamonds in the rough, but there's just a lot of amateurs that got promoted from the floor into the finance office with no foundation of structure or any foundation of sales besides what they've learned holding front gross and not really achieving back end gross, so to speak, per copy.
Yeah. So you're going in there and helping them. You're a consultant, basically, essentially, right?
That is pretty much the general formation. Absolutely. That's what I've been focusing on, is going into dealerships who have a hard time with achieving, 2,000 or more per copy, and getting them on the right track, because automotive finance and the automotive industry as a whole since 2020 has changed. The pandemic definitely accelerated a lot of the consumer behavior that we may have saw in 2030 that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, definitely changed quite a bit. It's been a roller coaster in almost every industry.
Absolutely.
Anybody who's in retail has been a total roller coaster the last 5 years, 6 years now. Mm-hmm. So you've built a brand around clarity in high pressure situations. What does that mean?
So what that means is there are two, when a customer is sitting with the sales consultant or they're dealing with the sales manager and they're trying to get to numbers, that's a very high pressure moment for the customer and also for the dealership. And what we do is that we try to bring clarity to that whole process. We want to give terms up front. There is no back and not necessarily not removing the back and forth, but the clarity that we provide is simply, this is what you qualify for. We need to get a credit application. We don't want to have the high pressure sales environment in which, the desk is giving a payment out without getting finance involved first. People don't buy cars based on a want anymore. It's now a need for employment, for whatever need that they have that vehicle for. And it's more so landing them on the right car with the right terms based on their credit. And that's where that clarity comes in. It's no longer I want this car, can I afford this car? Because as you probably know, new cars are at an all-time high for MSRP. And so
Hmm.
it's bringing that affordability and that clarity to the desk from a finance perspective to secure the deal up front so the customer doesn't feel as though they're either being getting ripped off or the other games that they play during amateur hour. It's removing that high pressure. We are now buyer advocates almost.
So you're talking about a lot of the old school, car buying techniques that a lot of people don't like anyway, right?
Precisely. It's removing those out of the equation in its entirety, getting the finance manager next to the sales consultant the moment after the test drive and the moment they want to move forward with that particular vehicle. And then working with that customer to ensure they're able to get into that vehicle or something comparable to it based on DTI, payment to income, etc. Is bringing credibility to the automotive finance world. No longer being a profit center, but making the deal attractive to a lender so they can buy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making it attractive so they can buy it. But I think there's a lot of I think a lot of people, when you think of going to a car dealership, you never want to go alone. you know,
I know.
it's
Some people. They usually bring an army. Usually, the whole family gets involved to be a buffer between the sales consultant and the finance office, and obviously the desk. And we're trying to
why do you
remove that hindrance.
why do you think it ever came down like that? Like, why did the car business evolve to be where like you've got to be kind of like on guard when you're going to a car dealership? Why did it turn into that?
I think a lot of it came from the desk. I think what it was is that it used to be hard sales tactics worked in the early 90s. And
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of dealer principles that are not changing with the evolving market. And that's the biggest reason why you just can't slam somebody into a car anymore. They need, especially with millennials and Zoomers, Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
they want their hands held. They want to feel respected. They want to be part of the car buying process and they want credibility. And if you go into any car dealership and, they start hammering you over the head with these terms buy today, that's no longer the car business. It's more of a softer sale and dealerships have not adapted to the new consumer behavior.
Hmm. So is a lot of what you do just education on how consumers behave nowadays?
It's more so what I like to do is not only educate dealers on the consumers, but I actually go into the box. That is what I do generally. And I show them how to actually educate the customer. Customers are
Okay.
already coming in very apprehensive. Many times either want to get their own financing or they want to pay cash or they have strong credit and they're coming in there with a level of aggression that's already up to here because past experience have showed that the dealer's already up to here and the customer's right here in levels of aggression. And removing that aggression and calming the customer down and explaining to them, like, do you like the car? Yes, fantastic. Sales consultant lands them on the car. They like the sales consultant, but finance comes out there as a advisor, not a financial advisor, but as an advocate, because our job is not to sell the car, is to sell it to a bank. Cars and all, you can't pay for cash for a new car anymore. Average MSRP I think is like 45K if you're looking at
Yeah.
domestic. And so financing is going to be the biggest, profit center of a dealer. But it's removing that hard pressure sales and it's talking to the customer and saying, hey, my job here is to mitigate risk with the customer, mitigate risk for the bank, and make sure that I'm able to get this loan bought with the most aggressive terms that you're going to be happy with. And the first thing I want to do is I want to go over your three bureaus, and you give them a copy of the three bureaus. And that's where the education part comes in. It's breaking down the foundation walls of the finance office built over the last 40, 50, 60 years
Hmm.
and revamping it as a consultative environment that not only the customer feels safe, but the dealer doesn't have to resort to those old tactics that puts a customer's guard up to begin with.
Yeah. Bringing just shining a light on like what's behind the curtain, maybe bringing like you said, removing the walls from the finance department. I like that. Yeah, because it always used to be a very, like, oh, we got it. Where do these numbers come from? No one really knows. you know. Uh
And just that people never liked finance managers because of because they were very, hard sell. Like if you don't buy a warranty, this is what's going to happen to your car, or
yeah.
those
Yeah.
days are over. It's more so now breaking down the aftermarket product, breaking down the rate. You want to hold your 2 points. We're not giving them buy rate for sure, but
Hmm.
structuring that loan to multiple lenders, but also structuring the product within the back end product within the loan payment and actually negotiating off of that. Because when a highly elite finance manager is an asset to the desk, in which they're able to uncover things and negotiate things that the desk may miss, because the desk is going to be more front end, geared more towards the front end, even though the
Mm-hmm.
profits are on the back. So your finance managers are not above the desk, they're not below the desk. They are equal. And that's the biggest thing is that a lot of desk managers believe that the finance department is beneath them. The finance department is an independent trade, is an independent division of a dealership where the profits can be made, and the desk needs to use those more and get them involved early. And that's why I keep harping on getting involved early, because when we go out there and we're able to shine a light in the finance office and show our transparency, those old stereotypes of the finance manager battering you over the head with a warranty just goes away. The customer gets a little thrown off because they already have their objections already lined up, ready to go. And now you're
Yeah.
just throwing them completely off. And that's where you're going to see your warranty penetration increase.
So doing this way, do you also see, F&I profits increase?
I do. When I was
Okay.
at Freeman Motor Company, where the brand started, actually, I was both in the finance department and running the desk. I was the second desk manager with a very heavy finance background, and that store was barely over 1,000 a copy when I showed up. And when I
Wow.
left, we had our warranty reps came in, and a lot, they trained us as well, trained the finance managers. When I left, we were well above 2,000 a copy. We were pushing well over $1 million in F&I profit and $3 million total round trip front and back gross profit. So
Wow.
when we actually structure deals accordingly, the profits that you see are extraordinary. And then when you stop relying on the front and you have an elite finance manager on the back, and we had two, was myself and another individual that I hired. He was absolutely fantastic. He came highly regarded. When you have a rockin' finance office and a desk that actually believes in the mission of the finance office, the sky's the limit. It really is at that point. From a profit from deals being bought that necessarily you thought couldn't be purchased, just putting in that extra effort your profits are going to increase by probably 80%. Very, very quickly. You would see that very quickly within a matter of 90 days.
So how do you get, would you call it a rocket finance manager or like an
You get
expert
a you
finance
get an
manager?
elite rockin' finance manager, and some
What
of them
makes
can
an
be taught,
elite?
some of them can't.
Yeah, I agree with that. What makes an elite finance manager?
The first thing that an elite finance manager is that they're structure first and sales second.
Mm-hmm.
They structure deals very competitively. They call the banks on every single customer to try to get better terms. They sit down with the customer, with the sales consultant on the showroom floor, and they verify all of their income, because people truly don't know how much income they actually make per year. They literally guess. And
Yeah.
so, they think that, oh, my 401k or my whole life insurance is not income. It is income, but there is cash value that you can borrow from that can be considered investment income. And that is the
Mm-hmm.
difference sometimes between 17.99 if you're a 630 credit score and 10.99. Because what it is, obviously a secured loan, and having that killer structure education, the ability to be attention to detail oriented, and being able to ask questions to a client that is not more so an interrogation,
Mm-hmm.
and finding out, well, why are we picking this car or whatever it may be? Do you like this car if I can't get an approval? You know, People don't mind being in a dealership for 2 hours if you're really working with the customer. They mind being in a dealership for 2 hours if the finance manager's hitting them over the head for profit and a desk is structuring the deal and it's not where they want to be. And
Yeah.
that's where we break down the walls of the finance office. Pure and simple.
So this Lone Wizard brand that you're building, is it how new is your brand?
So actually, it started at Freeman. That was my nickname.
Okay,
Because
Lone
sales
Wizard.
consultants would come to me and they would say, "This guy has 3 repos. There is no way you're going to get them bought." And I'd go out there and I'd get all their income, and I would come back out with a 15.99% interest rate with no money down. So it was actually a sales consultant actually said, it was called basically that's what I got called, was the wizard, because whatever deal that they think couldn't get bought, I would find a way to get it bought. And
Yeah.
that's where that structure comes in. It's like, look, I'm able to discount the car this way. You can, but you may need to, if we're trying to get you to a certain payment, I'm going to need you to buy warranty. If not stipulating the sale, you can still buy the car at this. But I just want to let you know that that we, in order for it to make sense for us, are you interested in, what we call at the time, the Freeman Parts and Labor Agreement. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times that's how we were able to secure back in when I was on the desk. And
Mm.
so that's where that brand came from. I just started the brand in December when I left to move back to the sunny state of Florida for that reason. I saw that in many of the dealerships I worked in as a finance director, as a finance manager, they
Mm-hmm.
were missing that component of structure, of having a finance manager truly take the deal by the horns and negotiate it for the dealership. And that's when more so how that brand was born.
Well, see, like, I think you're like one of those like anomalies out there, like, because you
My
must be
wife would agree that
extremely,
I am an anomaly, yes.
yeah, because you seem, I mean, in order to just like, I don't think most people would spend the time like, oh, he's got crap credit, 2 repos, tell him to go somewhere else. I don't want to deal with it. I don't have time. I don't care.
Hmm.
And to have that just like maybe a challenge mentality that you have where you're like, oh, I can get this guy done. I can get anybody done. Like that's something that you can't teach. And I think that's part of why you're successful, and why they call you the lone wizard. Because like when you're going into these other dealerships and you're trying to help them, you know, with their finance processes, not everybody cares as deeply as you might. So how do you find people who care when you're building out a finance department or building out a sales team, period? How do you find people who care?
So I actually have this, when I interview somebody, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I'm managers, a lot of times they hire and their egos attached to it. I
Yeah.
ask actual, I came from the financial services industry before the car business. I worked in both, investments and insurance at Northwestern Mutual.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a process that we used and it was called LIMRA, which is kind of a personality test.
Okay.
And I know those questions and I ask those in my interview when I'm interviewing somebody. For example, what are you going to do when you have a person with a 450 credit score? Are you, are we going to just more or so send them to a whole bunch of banks and wait for the declinations? Or are you actually going to really truly work the deal? It's a single mom with 2 kids. How hard are you going to work for that deal? Because you probably need that car to get to work. And you can always tell when people in an interview, when they're just trying to give you the answer that they think you want to hear. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
you find people who care, because people who truly care don't see it as, oh, I got a 450 credit score. They look at it as the credit score is not good or bad. What's their income? If you're only making $1,800 a month and a 450 credit score, you're looking at an Audi, that's the wrong car.
You just escort
you
them out of
know,
this dealership right away.
it's not even that. You just switch them to another car. And the way I've
Yeah.
always found when I hire sales teams or F&I managers, how they care is the only one person answered that question. He goes, what I do is that when I go out there and I find out they may be on the wrong car, I explain to them on their bureau why, and I actually educate them, give them some financial literacy. And when a finance manager says that, then I know they care. They actually want to educate the customer. Because really,
Mm.
at the end of the day, those are going to be your most profitable deals. Are the person with the credit scores between 550 and 640. There's a lot of profit to be made on those deals. You can always make profit on anything 680 or above. 680 is considered prime credit and whatever bureau you use. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money within the 550 to the 640, 660. And when those people come in, they don't think they're going to get approved. They're embarrassed. They already know their credit's probably, their financial house is not very clean. And when a finance manager out there who cares goes out there and takes the time to say, hey, you got some bumps and bruises? Guess what? Been there, done that, gotten a t-shirt. Here's the deal. You look like you're on the right car. You're going to have to crawl before you walk. What you can, you just explain just consumer credit to them. You're going to increase the likelihood of you, not only the customer accepting the terms from the bank, but also getting back end product. Because now they feel as though they have a friend. They have an ally in a car dealership. And that's going to be the difference between a dealer who has repeat business every 3 to 5 years and brand loyalty over a dealer X, Y, and Z, in which they don't do any of that. And then the salesman goes, well, why'd you buy from another place? You could have came and saw me again. Well, your finance manager was a jerk. That's literally
Mm-hmm.
why people don't go back to dealers. Finance can make or break the department, make or break a dealer.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the finance department is extremely important, extremely for so many reasons. Just like to your point, from a customer service point of view and from a profitability point of view. I mean, finance department right now, like you said, I don't know what the figures are right now, but I normally somewhere around what 30 to 40% of the dealership's total annual revenue can come from the F&I department. Or do you have a figure you'd put on that?
I do. I mean, I put mine a little bit higher.
A little bit
I
higher.
say at
Okay.
this point in time, with the current socioeconomics of the United States and everything else, with the boomers more so aging out, for lack of a better term, I think
Yeah.
that it's going to be well above 80% of a dealership's revenue is going to be F&I.
Wow.
As new car manufacturers cut the margins on your front end, before you know it, you're gonna MSRP. Ford sells most of the vehicles at invoice. When I worked for Ford,
Hmm.
it had to be
Hmm.
made up with a finance manager, and
Wow.
that can kill a dealership if you don't have a if your finance department is not producing X amount per copy consistently, be it 2,000, be it 3,500. You're gonna die, and you're gonna get bought out by a bigger store like Morgan Automotive Group or AMSI, which is big in the state of Florida.
Hmm.
You're gonna get bought out, and you're not gonna survive. You're gonna be well above 80 to 90%, in which F&I is going to be where the profit center is
Hmm.
in revenue for sure.
Crazy. So you think 80% of profit's going to come from F&I?
I
That's
do. I
insane.
believe in the very near future, within the next, definitely within the decade, um,
Hmm.
dealers that have gone to a reinsurance position
Yeah.
um, with their warranty representatives and their finance representatives and their companies are going to be well ahead of the curve than those who just see F&I as a backstop or whatever it may
Mhm.
be.
I haven't seen too many dealers in the new car franchise space that completely overlook F&I.
That is
Like
correct.
most of them think it's pretty important, and most of them are reinsured or on some sort of profit share, you
hmm
know, but maybe not all of them are hitting that per copy, that 2000 per copy. But I can tell you that used car dealers completely overlook F&I.
They
you
really
know.
do. And and that's the biggest thing, with the new car manufacturer, you obviously have some oversight from, the franchise, which just to use Ford as an example. He got some
Hmm.
parameters you have to hit. But
Yeah.
independent dealers, they completely overlook F&I. They completely overlook deal structure. They just see it as, if I'm able to get a little bit of it warranty on here, that's fantastic. And what you're going to see as the used car market starts cooling down over time and prices finally start normalizing, pre-COVID, so to speak,
Hmm.
F&I is going to be where, if you're an independent dealer, no matter where you are in the country, be it Oregon, Washington, here in Florida, and you're not maximizing, your bank's reserve, your credit union's, reserve, or your 2 points, or your warranty options, your menu, you're gonna want, as an independent dealer, you're not going to survive, because F&I for independent dealers is going to be the number one profit center. And there's a lot of opportunity because you're already selling a used car. They already know they're selling a used car. Cars probably has very little or no manufacturer's warranty left. No one wants to be on the hook for a depreciating asset with all that risk. It's an easy
Hmm.
sell, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now it's just time to stop overlooking that easy sell, and independent dealers truly need to focus on F&I as a whole.
There's levels of used car dealers, right?
hmm
There's like the guy who's got 20 cars on the lot, and he got pissed off one day, gave his GM the finger and said, I can go sell cars. you know
Exactly.
and and then and then he's out there selling cars, but he's like a 1 or 2 man show. It might be him and one salesperson, and I feel like those guys, they struggle the most. They don't sell really any back end products, and they're just focused on getting the car moved. So at what point in time, or at what, I mean, the answer is always, but at what level of, used car dealership should have a full-time finance manager, or at least a part-time finance manager working for you? Would you
So
say?
what I believe, what level of dealership, if you think you can sell cars and you open up your own, be it in Florida or anywhere in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't have any credibility with the banks, it's going to be a very hard road. It's not necessarily of what level. It has to be, when I'm opening up my own dealership, the first thing I need is a finance manager who knows what he's doing, who
Mm.
has credibility with the banks, who is able to help us with the reps, who may have a Rolodex, from his warranty reps, etc.
Yeah.
Warranty reps always want to help out someone who they know and like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's business for them. It's not a conflict of interest. Doesn't matter what level you are, you need a finance manager.
Hmm.
Or if you are, let's just say, a dealer that has a strong finance background, you're going to be ahead of that curve.
Mm.
That would be the advice. If you're just doing a one-man show, either hire a finance manager really quickly and do a profit share, or you're gonna have to learn to finance the box really quickly. Because no matter what car you're selling, financing is going to be the way to go. No one right now has 30 to 40K just lying around that they want to use. Put it
Yeah.
that way.
No. Yeah, that's totally true. So what do you have any tips for, used car dealerships out there who need to get access to more banks?
I do. I would say, my first tip would be do your best to try to have credibility with the banks. Structure is key. Neat paper is key. Clean approvals and clean submittals is key. And if you don't have that experience, you need to find somebody, either a consultant or your warranty rep that may have a finance training division within the warranty company. There are plenty of those that do that. Or
Hmm.
find somebody in the field who is willing to obviously work for a dealer from the ground floor. That would be my first tip
Yeah.
for people looking to get into the business, start their own dealership, or those who are looking to expand and don't necessarily have a strong finance office. That would be my first three tips.
Hmm.
Find somebody, learn it, or see if a warranty rep, your warranty company has an F&I training division, or any ability to source people that they know who may be willing to relocate or in the area to get that department up and running.
So that's a good question too. I'm going to ask you that one. Is it better to train a finance manager how to do finance or hire one that already knows how to do finance?
It depends. So this is what I've always said, and that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. You can train someone to do finance, but at the same token, what you should do is hire somebody with a proven track record that is outside of the organization to get the department up and running, and then choose your best sales associate or someone you think will do great in the finance office and have them shadow and train them while you have that finance manager. It is very difficult to train somebody when your F&I profits are decreasing, because
Mm-hmm.
now you're in a position of duress. You want to at least have a stable footing first and then start training that finance manager. A lot of warranty companies do a boot camp. You can send them there while your F&I manager that you've hired, is still spinning deals. You never want any downtime in the finance office. So generally speaking, before you train somebody, you need to hire someone who knows what they're doing.
Mm.
And I mean, truly knows what they're doing, that truly cares. And that's either you hire a consultant for maybe 6 months to a year, or you hire a family friend, or your warranty rep gives you a referral and say, look, this guy maybe is retiring within the next 5 years. This is probably going to be his last store. That
Yeah.
would be my advice. That's what I would coach dealers to do, and then train a
Mm-hmm.
guy while you have that F&I manager to learn the job as well. Show that you promote from within, but not at the expense of the company as a whole.
I like that. Man, I tell dealers that all the time.
it
I agree with you.
is the best way to keep your
Yeah.
deallership running and profitable,
Yeah.
without sacrificing the dealer at the same time, but also keeping morale in the store from the sales team happy. Because sales associates, some people want to be car salesmen forever, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people do want to, if you're a good store, you want to show that there's upward mobility, because if you don't show there's upward mobility, all they have to do is walk into your competition, say they want finance, they'll sign a pay plan no matter how bad it is just for the experience, and now you lost your top guy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of how the business works, unfortunately.
Give him the opportunity, or he'll find the opportunity if they're good. You
Precisely.
know.
If they're good.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I've had a lot of dealers, so I don't know if you know or what you know about me, but I would be what you would consider to be your warranty rep for a lot of dealers, and we do F&I training and all that good stuff. And this last year, we experimented a lot with rather training salespeople who raise their hand who want to do it instead of hiring. Because I had this really big dealer group, and they, didn't really have their finance department put together correctly. And they're like, we just want to train, our best salespeople. And man, that's hard to do, to teach people. It's A lot of people think that I've talked to about finance. They think it's black and white. This is what you do. This is how you do it, and it's done. It's an art. Would you agree that finance is an art?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a technical side to finance, and that's the paperwork side. But
Yeah.
the best finance managers, I see myself as Picasso. That every deal that's coming in, there is an art form to this, and how the painting
Yeah.
comes out is, how the painting comes out. But
Yeah.
every F&I is truly an art form from
Hmm.
from start to finish, from the structure, which is your foundation, of the painting, all the way to the final, signing the paperwork, presenting your warranties, etc. It's all an art. It's not a
Yeah.
science. It is not black and white. It is actually very abstract and colorful. There has been
Hmm.
deals that have come across my desk that I sit there and I sit like you got four repos and you're here, you're looking at a Mercedes. I can see if I get you bought, and there's a lender that makes money off of that, and they will buy it. And that's where that
Yeah.
art form comes in. I've always said this in the finance office. Art and relationships is the picture that finance paints. The
Mm.
art of the deal, which is trying to structure that deal accordingly, and obviously the sales side of it, but also relationships make the finance office go around. And if you
Yeah.
have a very strong relationship with some hardcore subprime lenders, and even your prime lenders like Santander, which is now full spectrum, you're going to be able to get deals bought because they like you, so
Hmm.
to speak. And that's where a lot of finance managers don't take the time. And it's one of my pet peeves. They don't talk to the reps. Every dealership I was in when I was in the box or on the desk, the reps would come and see me, and I made friends. And sometimes they're going to see something that I missed. And they're like, well, we can get this approved now. You just missed this particular piece of information. Or this program actually works better for this customer than the auto reject that you just have. It's still a very human business. And that's really where the loan wizard comes in. Relationships make the finance office go around.
And a lot of people get lazy on that. People don't want to pick up the
Very
phone
lazy.
anymore. They don't want to pick up the phone. Oh, the computer said no. I was like, okay, well, you got to go around the computer sometimes, man. Like,
You got to go around a
you know,
computer all the time because AI makes mistakes. I mean,
yeah.
we've seen that many times where in the cuddle system, Oregon Community Credit Union said absolutely not. And I call the bank, we go, they say to me, we don't know why it auto rejected. We can get this approved at tier 6. Boom.
Hmm.
Wasn't a car deal, is now a car deal. And that's
Yeah.
where that's where a top elite finance manager takes that art and turns it into a masterpiece. It's all just this beautiful picture you're trying to paint.
Hmm.
And when it comes out great, it's profitable. And when it doesn't come out great, well, sometimes deals are like that.
Hmm. So what's like a system or a habit that you've implemented in dealerships that immediately improves performance in the sales of the finance team?
The biggest system that I have is that generally speaking, if your desk managers, at least one of them needs to come from a finance background. That's the first thing that I've seen where a lot of dealerships fall short. They're great
Mm.
at out there hammering people over the head, but they have no clue about finance, so they just didn't do well. But more importantly, if you don't have that, the finance manager cannot just sit in his office and wait for a deal. The moment we get a credit application, the finance manager should be going that over with the customer. Because that's where the finance manager has more knowledge than the sales consultant. Sales
Hmm.
consultant doesn't know those questions, and a highly trained finance manager will be able to ask those questions. Hey, do you have a 401k? Hey, do you have a whole life? Oh, do you have an oh, so you day trade a little bit on the side? Well, that's additional income. How much is that per month? A sales consultant's just going to use employment income. They don't know the fine weeds. So that's the first step. Finance manager has to go out there and actually do a credit consultation. We pull your credit. We see that you have a mortgage. We see we have this and this. These are your bureaus. You get a free copy of your credit report every year. Since obviously you're looking to purchase a vehicle from us, this is just a courtesy that we provide, a little bit of a perk. Here's your 3 bureau credit reports. I usually pull 2, Equifax and Experian. Those are going to be your best 2.
Hmm.
These are for your records. And you just start off with a credit consultation. And then, when a customer says, well, I got you, and you say, look, I'm going to work on getting you approved. My job here, this is step 2. My job here is to mitigate risk for the bank, mitigate risk for you, and find the best terms for you so you can take this vehicle home with you today. Does that sound fair? Customer's always going to say absolutely. He goes, finance manager goes, fantastic. Give me about 15, 20 minutes. I just got your application. Before I actually go into the finance office, I just want to verify all your information. Verify the income, make sure it's gross, not net, because I've had that issue where they give me after taxes, and then you give them pre-tax income, and all of a sudden declinations become an approval. You know,
Yeah.
just taking that time, and it takes about 30 to 45 minutes,
Hmm.
generally speaking, to go for the approval, about 10 to 15 minutes talking to the customer, putting them at ease. And you're just going to be back and forth a lot. You're going to be actively involved from the first pencil forward, and that's the most important part. Is that when the desk is presenting numbers, the finance manager is not too far behind, with trying to ensure that the best terms are being reached and negotiate a little bit. At the end of the day, when you are a customer and you're not paying cash for a vehicle, you have no buying power. The bank does. And that's what a true finance manager, that's where the art comes in. They understand, they explain that to the customer. Look, I know you really want the car, but really at the end of the day, the bank owns the car until you pay it off. So that's who's right now buying the car. I need to make you look attractive as possible.
Hmm.
And that's how that system goes. And the finance
That's a good
managers,
spin. I like that spin on the things. Like the bank's buying the car. We got to make you look good to the bank. I
precisely,
like
it's
that
an
spin.
audition. You're auditioning for a bank to show that you are responsible enough to carry, we did a lot of Highline Euros at my last place, to carry a loan of
Mhm.
a $45,000 car. That's what the bank wants to see. They don't care that's an Audi or anything like that. What they care about is that the book value matches, which we were very competitive on our books. But more importantly, you're auditioning for the bank. So any information you give me that makes you look good, I want to know. And that's how that system operates. It's not like step by step. You're going to have customers that are going to throw the monkey wrench in the system and you have to start all over again. But that consultative approach, that I am here to get you bought by a bank, I get paid the same either way, whether you purchase this vehicle or not. I just need to make you attractive to the bank, opens up that conversation. Because I've had conversation with banks and they say, look, we like this guy. His income's a little less. We're afraid he might be a repo risk because of the average repair of a Mercedes Benz. If and banks have told me this, on the phone, if you can get him a warranty, maybe we're able to adjust things real quick on our side. It really, mitigate that risk. And the banks are not supposed to say that, but the
Yeah, I was
banks
like,
want the
that's a gray
business.
area if I ever heard
That's
one.
the gray area financially, but banks have said that, in which they've
Yeah.
said, if you can mitigate the risk as best as you can, we might have something there. And that's where that relationship comes in, because then they trust you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the customer wants a car, and our job is to facilitate the financing and to put a dream in a driveway. That is really what the finance office does at the end of the day.
Guys, you could tell if you're listening, he said this a few times. I've heard that. I feel like I'm in the finance office right now listening to this. We're out at the sales table. I'm just meeting you for the first time. Like
Yeah, right.
that's where I feel like I'm sitting right now. Uh, what are your thoughts on? I talked to a dealer last week who's using AutoFi. Are you familiar with AutoFi?
Not like very familiar, but I've heard of AutoFi to a certain
So
extent.
it's basically a tool where you kind of hand the customer and they adjust the payments and everything like that all on their own, and they can select back end on their own. And he said that he's tried it out, and I can't remember the dang name of it, but Ford just put together a deal where they remodeled their dealership and they made it into this new, subcategory of Ford. I can't remember the dang name of it, but basically it's more of like a luxury feel for Ford. And what they're going to do is
Correct.
they've removed all the sales desks and they've put in a bar and couches and took away the computers and gave the sales guys iPads. And the customer now basically takes the iPad and they can adjust payments and terms and all that sort of stuff after they fill out a credit app. And a lot of the back and forth seems to be had with the salesperson playing with the iPad rather than the finance manager giving terms. I don't know if you ran into that yet or not, but I thought that was kind of interesting because for what you and I do in that space, the finance manager might be doing a little bit less, you know?
That is correct. It started off actually with the black label selection at Lincoln, is where they got rid of
Okay.
the sales decks and the booths and they want to do
There
the
you go.
iPads.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I worked for a dealership actually. I was that had that very similar model for Lincoln Black Label clients. And with those particular clients, it works because they're usually pretty savvy to begin with. You start dealing
Mhm.
with, Ford is actually, from a client-based standpoint, Ford is actually a luxury brand. The average Ford buyer has over a 740 credit score. They usually have 20% down. They usually do buy maintenance and back end,
Mm.
and allowing them that control because, especially with Ford trucks, and Lincoln products, they want to be in control to a certain aspect. And, the sales consultant needs to have a base knowledge of, the Ford maintenance program. If you buy, the Ford maintenance program, this is what it does. It also covers your brakes, your, on your intervals, etc., which most maintenance plans don't. Ford has a rocking product that can sell itself. My
Mm.
only concern with that particular setup is that you're allowing sometimes a customer maybe too much control, and they don't necessarily know the product. So it's great in theory, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out. But I also know that what I think Ford has always systematically wanted to do was get rid of, be more of like a Tesla model in which they're a
Hmm.
gallery. It's
Yeah.
something that is one of James Farley's, biggest talking points in 2020 was to remove dealers out of the equation, just have freestanding service centers. That obviously didn't happen.
Nope.
Um, but that's where with Ford, they're very good at innovation. They're very good at, trying things out and sometimes at their own expense. I think for a very small select group of customers that works for it, but not the majority of Americans who really don't know, financing terms or how to protect their vehicle, the risks of taking the vehicle past the manufacturer's warranty with no protection, etc. So the finance manager should be involved in that conversation with the iPad, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. He said I'll just kind of give you a little recap on what he said though, that they've been trying this for 6 months or less than a year. He was the first Ford dealership in the States to have this, or worldwide, I think he said. Very first one. He's out of Maryland, I believe. And he said that every measurable KPI in the dealership from a profitability standpoint increased. They made more money in F&I, more money on the vehicle, because people just weren't asking as many questions about prices and stuff. They were just playing with the
Yeah, playing
payments.
on the iPad and with conditioning of Apple, actually, it makes a lot of sense. Like I could see
Yeah.
where, that would work because especially with the younger generation, millennials and,
Mm-hmm.
Generation Z, if you give them an iPhone or an iPad, you've removed a lot of that. They feel comfortable now because that's the technology they've been using for so long. So
Yeah.
it actually is kind of brilliant. Like I'm pretty excited to see it because from a consumer behavior, psychological standpoint, they're already desensitized to the iPad, so they feel now comfortable with the process. So that would
Yeah.
make
The iPad
perfect
doesn't
sense.
lie.
Yeah, the iPad doesn't lie at the end of the day, and they probably watch movies on it at home. So it's really
Yeah.
that's actually really unique. I'm excited to hear that. That actually is, that's almost a little bit of a breakthrough, I would say.
Definitely a breakthrough. And I think it's good for dealers. Honestly, I think it's gonna be bad for consumers. Because just like, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but I've
I
only
do.
since iPhone came out, that's the only phone I've had. And I know the profit margins on iPhones are ridiculous. And we don't ask questions because this is the price is the price. There's no negotiating.
Hmm.
They've taken that out. Like, you can negotiate, but they just don't. And I think that's what might happen in the automotive industry. I mean, Tesla's kind of like that. There's no real negotiation. The price is the
Yeah.
price. You go online to their website. You want to lease it, you click lease. You want to finance, you click finance, and then that's it. And then you get an email about factory incentives every once in a while. So
I mean, look at Mercedes-Benz and Nissan. You can sign up for warranties directly on their website if you're a client. Once you
yeah,
sign up with Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, they'll send you an email of the warranties. That's been phone calls from finance managers I've heard are pretty interesting,
yeah,
to say the least. I mean, but
yeah.
we're in Florida too, so we don't have a lot of those issues with the back end either because we're state regulated.
Yes,
And
that's
so
true.
that's the price of the warranty in Florida is the price. The price is the price. There is no negotiation.
Yeah, we already got
That's
that
I
iPhone
think.
pricing.
So, I
And
mean,
it's
I'm
to
always
protect people, right?
put in since Hurricane Charlie, but I mean, but you see, you only regulated one product. I mean, there's other ways. So obvious dealers find a way to ensure that they're still profitable.
Yeah,
But taking a negotiation out of the financed office, it's great for dealers. It's great for the manufacturer, but it does necessarily hurt the consumer because
yeah,
they don't, because negotiation truly is. where the best of the best goes in, and that's where if you're better at your job, if the customer's great at their job and you're not so great at yours, customer's going to win. And so
Mm-hmm.
it creates that. It almost takes the not the fun of it, but it does even out the market, so to speak, in which there's not a disparity. I think it's because you don't have highly trained F&I managers and highly trained salespeople, and customers sometimes railroad certain salespeople, and this is a great way to even out the competition.
Hmm. Yeah.
That would be my take on it. It's great. I think the automotive industry is changing, at a rate that I don't think history has ever recorded before. It's going way too, the changes in the automotive industry are almost daily, from
Mm-hmm.
technology, artificial intelligence, etc. But that also removes a lot of the human interaction of it. And therefore, it doesn't really instill dealer loyalty because now you're only loyal to an iPad. Well, every dealership's going to have an iPad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, to your point, though, I mean, with the internet, that's changed. That broke prices, right? Now it's
oh,
like
absolutely.
I can compare your car in Florida to your car in Washington, and to me, I don't really care. It's the same car, and I'm gonna
Exactly.
put you. You're competing with people that aren't even in your market now, so it's maybe a good thing and a bad thing all at the same time. You
It's
know?
both. It's with technological change always comes sometimes more transparency.
Yeah.
If Honda did a study, Honda Financial, in which 82% of customers want to have their financing approved before they even walk into the dealer. I mean, so that's something that I introduced. At some of the stores that I was at is you know talking F&I over the phone to a customer that may be out of state or someone
Okay.
who,
I have a question for you on that. I'm gonna interrupt you. Speaking of
yes.
online F&I, in that scenario, you're talking to the customer about payments over the phone, right?
Hmm.
Are you talking about warranties over the phone too, or are you waiting until they get to the dealership? Because you may not even see them.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on their driving distance. I always had a steadfast rule. If they're 90 minutes away from the dealership, I like to see them in person. Obviously, there are
Mm-hmm.
wet docs that need to be signed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
s- a lot of finance managers are going to probably kick me in the rear end, for saying this, but I have been very successful at pitching the whole product on the phone.
Hmm.
I have sometimes, we had Southwest Re, ARC group who came in. We had Zoom capabilities to do Zoom, within our menu system. I strongly believe that that's where the future is going to be going.
Mm-hmm.
As the internet, we used to go against Granger Ford all the time for warranties when I worked for Ford years ago,
Yeah.
and they would bottom out their warranty pricing. And we would always, and granted, we would always keep them here because we had our own pitch for it. But if people buy on convenience, and if you make F&I convenient and the customer is just doesn't want to come into the store, they're introverted, they're afraid of the world, whatever it may be. If you make it convenient for them, you're different than your competition. Therefore, you will get the profit in the deal no matter what.
Hmm.
And I've seen finance managers goes, I need them here to be pitched in the store. Those days are flying by fast. You got to be
Yeah.
strong in pitching in the virtual world because before you know it, people already know what car they want. They already know what car they want to buy. If they just need their financing done, and dealers are going to become not car dealers anymore. They're going to become finance centers that actually have it that happen to have an inventory to pick from.
Pick
And
up
you got to
locate.
get good at picking on the phone, pitching on the phone, or pitching on Zoom, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, because that's a bigger and bigger thing, and I don't think a lot of people think about that, but it is coming more often than not. Where customers do want to get that pre-approved before they come into the store, and they got all these softwares out there now for customers to go online, go to your website, get a quick little credit look, see what you can get approved for, and then you
Absolutely.
got it. And then as a finance manager, you got to make the decision: should I pitch products now, or should I pitch products when they come into the store? you know?
I've always said pitch it on the phone. And
Yeah.
always when they're coming in or take delivery, there's gonna obviously be wet docs they need to sign. Your title, your application for title and registration, your odometer disclosure, and there's a trade, obviously your POAs, to
Yeah.
take the trade in. Those obviously still need to be wet signatured. So that being said, you pitch them on the phone, and then when they're there, you just try to pitch them again. You don't necessarily send them the contract documents because they got to sign the wet docs anyways. But I believe in this is that because I've done it where I've pitched and they said no on the phone, and then they've come in 2 days later to take delivery and they've had a change of heart.
Hmm.
Sometimes just getting that no out of the way early is the best thing that you can do. If
Yeah.
the desk pitches the product, they say no to the desk. They think they've won. They say yes to the finance manager. You've removed the resistance.
So let me ask you this question. What's the number one reason why customers say no to buying the extended warranty?
Preconditioning. You also got a lot of experts like Dave Ramsey. Oh, never buy an extended warranty. Well, that's
Ah,
fantastic. He's one of those. There's just some horror stories out there, and people have had very bad experiences with Car Shield or whatever it may be, and that's the main reason why. And it's just out of fear, because that's really what it comes down to. They are already seeing a payment that's a little bit higher than they already kind of want to be at. Now you have some joker wanting to sell me more products. That's really what the customer is thinking. And
mm-hmm.
you just got to build value and really explain the risk. And that's where the customer says, you know what? I did not know that there are about 1,300 computers in an Audi. And if one of them goes out, the average repair is like 5K. And it's just
Yeah.
it's just something that you just brush over. It's a sterile office, it's a clean office, but it's just something to tell the customer just the features and benefits of how this warranty is going to impact your life. We're going to give you a rental car. It's included in your warranty package. Little stuff like that the customer goes, oh yeah, I remember when my car broke down and I was everyone was sharing one car in a household and it was a nightmare, and I had to pay 5-10K to get my transmission fixed because I was
Mm-hmm.
1,000 miles outside of warranty. Just that's where that no turns into a yes. Is now
Yeah.
you've removed a lot of that fear. You're taking the time. I actually pull out a mock contract, and I go over what's covered and what's not with the customer. Because that's really what they want to know. Because every finance manager goes, oh, this covers everything. No, it doesn't. If, you don't change your oil and the engine blows, you're on the hook for it. First and
Yeah.
foremost. And that's what you
Yeah.
go over with the customer. Go over the exclusions. Go over the pricing. Just be as transparent as possible and not no. I would say around 80% of the time will turn into a yes, at least somewhere, shape, or form. The only time that no won't turn into a yes is really turns into a yes, but it comes down to affordability.
Hmm.
If they're capped out in payment already based on rate or whatever it may be, or the bank has cut you back and your cost is higher than what the bank is allowing, you're kind of dead in the water. But that's really what it comes down to. Customers, when they go into a dealership, they're scared and afraid, and our job is to reassure them to not be afraid, that we are actually here to help them, and this is not 1995 anymore. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. I think you're absolutely right. Most objections as people why they don't is because they're afraid. But also when you're talking about them, you got to build value and explain properly what it does, what it doesn't do, and then that alleviates concerns. And they go, okay, this is either really good or I don't need this. Let them kind of make the decision. So
Exactly. Giving the customer the latitude and giving them the respect that they are the consenting adult and they actually are knowledgeable is going to be where that no turns into a yes. We are
hmm,
the experts, but also just coming off as an expert right off the bat makes the customer fearful. Give them the latitude to make that decision. And more
yeah.
times it's going to go in your favor.
Well, that's where that sales guy who's too confident that you need to buy whatever he's selling. You're like, okay,
Exactly.
like you don't even know me, dude. He's like, yeah, but you need one. Yeah, that's funny. Well, well, cool, man. So if there's dealers out there who are listening who, you know, need, how would you sum up what you do for dealers out there?
I call it a finance office capitalization. I've
Okay.
taken all my experiences. I've had some mentors in the past, and I go into a dealer, and what I do is that I take your finance office, and I break the walls down, and so it's like a remodel, is what I say. From my
Okay.
short time in the construction industry, you're hiring me because you want to get to a certain level per copy. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to do a needs analysis, and I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do, and I'm going to be there to do it with you. I'm not just going to show up once a week to talk yabber jabber and socialize with everybody. So it's really at the end of the day, if you want to get from increase your profits, remodel your finance office, you're going to come look for me. Because I'm going to teach your guys and train your guys how to get approvals that you thought would not be bought. I'm going to be able to see if they can be purchased or not and show you some of the secret sauce. That's generally what I do. It's helping dealers reframe their own finance office, reframe their reputation, reframe their look.
There you go, guys. If you're a dealership out there who needs some help, you can look up the Lone Wizard. You can find him on LinkedIn, and that's it, man. I appreciate it, guys. If you're listening to this episode and you guys enjoyed this episode, you found it valuable, share it with someone you like. If you didn't like this episode and we just bored you to tears, share it with someone that you don't like. Let us bore them.
Take his advice if that's in that case.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.